I expect this video to be a bunch shorter than the videos that we've done before this, but I wanted to section this off into its own video because it is kind of its own little topic. Last time we set up a bunch of stuff to make dialogue choices in our tree possible. So we can now choose in a dialogue box and we'll have different results based on what we click on. And we can even loop back around through the same question and we can just kind of guide our dialogue through however we want. But if you're going to make all of your dialogue in a single dialogue tree, obviously that's not ideal because that's going to grow out of proportion super quickly. So what I want to talk about is making this like little speaker blueprint that we have a little bit more intelligent with what dialogue tree it actually runs. So let's make a copy of our dialogue tree and call it dialogue tree test 2. And for ease of use, I'm just going to make it say something different on the choice so that I don't have to write out like an entire separate set of dialogue tables because I'm bad at writing. So at pick choice, we're just going to go into the dialogue and make it show this circle. Why not? The name will be new dialogue and the text will be haven't I seen you before. We're going to go into the state tree component here and we'll actually change this state tree itself. I'll copy it over one more time because this state tree itself is actually going to kind of just disappear as a whole. So we'll make this root entirely empty, so get rid of the tasks. And what we're going to do is we'll add a child state, and this child state will be of type linked asset, and that'll either link to state number 1 or state tree number 1 rather, and then we'll add another one which will link again to a linked asset which will be state tree number 2. So this way you can manage them a little bit easier. So when this state tree runs, of course, it's going to go through a root, and then it's going to not try to select children in order, it's just going to try to enter. And then we'll set up the transitions for these either like by event or by some kind of other transition condition. So we're going to set up all of the logic for which state trees to go through in here. You can do that with a couple of substates as well, if you really want to. If nothing else, to keep things organized, so we can make like a child state here, which can be before quest 1. And then we can add in another child state here, which can be after quest 1, which can have a couple of child states for whatever else you might be doing. So this way you can set up some more complex logic for what state tree to run. So let's just make a quick mock-up of something like this so that we can see how that would work in practice, right? So we have state tree test 1, and then during the quest we have state tree test 2. And after the quest, we would have a handful of potential other ones, which we're just going to make a state tree test 3 for real quick, which is going to have yet another choice icon for us. So into the dialogue, and we'll just pick this like basic one and call quest finished. Hey, I know you. And maybe we even like get rid of these options here. It's just, hey, I know you, and then when the choice is made, instead of going to any other place, we just finish this state and we like delete these other two. And we can even get rid of this condition. So now we have a third one as well. So we can make this once again a linked asset that runs as a whole. Now do be aware that the linked assets here still do need to have a transition set up to complete this tree that they are in as well. So on state complete, we finish this, and then on state complete for this one, we also finish the tree for every single one of these. And now since we're scripting this out more specifically, what we can do is we can set this context actor to be a very specific type. So we can set this to being BP speaker, and we can just kind of store a lot of information on BP speaker. Meaning that after we talk to you the very first time, so going back into state tree test 1, we can add a task here. Change this to BP speaker as well, because this is only going to ever run on BP speaker, because this is his dialogue specifically. And your major characters are going to likely have a class to themselves. So this is very much something that you can set up this way. Let's make a new task here. And I'm going to just kind of do this semi-hacky, in that we're going to do this as STT spoken to speaker. Obviously, you would make a state tree task that's a little bit more reusable, maybe called like a interface or whatever. Realistically, what you would do instead is you would make the condition something that checks your quest system to see, hey, has this quest been started? Has it been finished? Whatever. But we don't have a quest system to hook into, so I'm just going to set up a variable on this guy that's going to count up the amount of times that we've talked to it. So BP speaker itself is going to have I'm just going to call it index integer. And then spoken to speaker, we can make a variable of type BP speaker. And what I'm simply going to do is on enter state, we're going to take this BP speaker, we're going to get the index that we made, and we're simply going to increment it. And of course, we want to make that speaker variable context so that it gets automatically populated. And that's all that this task is going to do. So anytime I enter this, we're going to add that task, spoken to speaker. And now we can either explicitly set up the transitions in here, or we can go back to try to select children in order and give these the entry conditions. I think for this setup, making these entry conditions makes a little bit more sense. So that's the way that we're going to do it. It's going to try to enter this one first. If it can't, it's going to enter this one. If it can't, it's going to enter this one. So since this is going to count up from 0 to 1 before it enters one of these, we're going to set up the entry condition here to be a integer compare. And we're going to be comparing our actor's index to a value of 1. So if actor index is 1, we're going to do this. And then entry condition here, integer actor index 2. And obviously then for this one, we do entry condition integer actor index. I didn't type an X, I just realized, number 3. So now every time I talk to him, it's going to run a different one of these trees. Quick fix. Entry condition actually happens apparently after it's found the initial state to go into. So it actually does need to start counting from 0. This doesn't really matter for the system. This is just an off by 1 error that I made. Again, this is just for demonstrational purposes anyway. For an actual game, you would have actual like systems to hook into to decide this kind of stuff. And now you will see, if we look up to this, I had an arrow there before, don't mind that. I have a face. Do you have a face? Faces are nice. Everything that we've seen before. We enter dialogue. Now it's counted up 1, so it's going to be running an entirely different dialogue tree to begin with. So we have the same thing, but we can see it's a different tree because it now has new dialogue with a different image, which is actually the same dialogue tree otherwise. So like, let's just skip through this. And now that we've done that, we can very easily just check, hey, I have a face. Do you have a face? Faces are nice. Hey, I know you. Because it's the 3rd time that we're talking to him. So we can say whatever we want, and that just finishes it, because that's how we set up that tree. Now, it's going to have a bit of an issue here, because the way that I have this set up, it's actually checking the entry condition here, whether or not it is equal to. We should probably check whether or not it is greater than or equal to, because we want to just have that as its final dialogue. That's always going to do. But again, this just integer checking is mostly a proof of concept to show you guys how to like navigate with these different subtrees to keep things organized. If you have an inventory system, if you have a quest system, you would be hooking into that to look up conditions based on those things instead. Maybe after I make a quest system, I will merge the 2 projects together and make a video specifically about how those things work together. Because I find that I get a decent amount of questions of people who've seen like 2 or 3 different system tutorials and don't really know how to like hook those into each other. So that might be like valuable to do in the future. But for now, just try to figure it out how to hook in other systems into this instead of setting up like specific integer requirements, because that's obviously not how you're actually going to do this. Again, I know this was a little bit of a shorter video, but the last video ended up being relatively long, and it's not really gonna fit too well with the next video, because I want to talk a little bit more about those like dynamic choices. So this is a bit of a shorter video in the middle here, and next time will maybe also be slightly shorter, because it's not that complicated. These are things that I want to show as more or less proof of concepts of what you can do with the system as we have it set up now. And a very big thank you to all my Patreons. You can see them on screen right now. If you want to help support the channel or get any of the project files in any of my tutorials, there's a link down below to the Patreon page to support me, or alternatively as a YouTube member. And of course, an extra massive thank you to my Cave Digger tier supporters, Sir J. Thomas, and my Cave Student tier supporters, Oiku and Earl Monsville Urno.